Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to In the Air. This is a Zentangle class that I'm about to teach for the San Rafael Public Library, but I thought I'd share it with you over here on YouTube as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with the Micron PN Pen, the Sakura Jelly Roll 10 white pen, the Identi pen from Sakura. This is a thick nib pen, wonderful for pooling ink. If you don't have a thick nib pen, don't worry about it. Grab a sharpie and that will do in a pinch. I'll also be working with a graphite pencil and a blending stump. If you don't have a blending stump, go ahead and grab a Q-tip from the bathroom. That'll work out just fine. And the graphite pencil is just a number 2 pencil. Some of you know that I love working with a gummy eraser. You'll need to have a gummy eraser for this class when we clean up our string. Now, many of you know that I love to work with the Genesis tile, and this is over in the Tangled Yogi shop. This is super smooth paper, great for receiving color pencil, and I just love working with it. Now, if you don't have the Genesis tile, don't worry about it. You can go ahead and grab your favorite smooth cardstock or Bristol paper or just your favorite sketchbook and make a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 and play along with us. You know me, I am a Prismacolor girl. I do love the Prismacolor pencils. Whenever you're working with really good quality materials, you always have a more fun result. Now remember, if you don't have Prismacolors, it's fine. Go ahead and grab whatever color pencils that you have and play along, but I hope I can entice you to try some of these out. And remember, the holidays are coming. This would make an excellent gift. All right, with that said, let's get started with In the Air. So you can see that I have my tile placed on the diamond here, and this is how I'm going to be working with the piece throughout the entire class here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by using a graphite pencil and coming in about 1 inch. Now for those of you who don't use inches as your measurement, it's about 2.5 centimeters. I'm going to do the same thing by coming up from the bottom and doing that, and then over from this side about 1 inch as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect the dots here, so it's going to look a little bit like this. I'm just going to go very gently with that graphite pencil here and connect, and then I'll turn my tile and I'll connect again. You can see I'm going nice and light with that. It's just to give me the string that I'm looking for. I'm going to let those dots work their way out into the corners, just like so, so that now I have this really nice space in which to work in the bottom of the piece. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to build the piece with our string. So I have my pen ready to go here, and I'm just going to start to ink in the string. You can see that I'm taking my time. I'm going to turn the tile to make it work for my hands here. Coming in and letting those lines work their way off the side, just like so. So that we've got this almost V-like shape at the bottom. So to create our bat, I'm going to come down from the top with my graphite pencil here and make a little guideline for myself. I'm going nice and lightly here, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a little guideline that's going to go across just like so. Now once I have that, I'm going to make 2 little dots on either side on that horizontal line that are coming out from the center line. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this so that you can see it a little bit more clearly, and all I'm going to do is make a nice deep smiley face. Once I've got that smiley face in there, I'm going to come from this point to this point with a very soft arch. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. And then on either side of my bat here, I'm going to do 2 arches that are going to come from this point and start to come down to this point. So what it'll look like is I'm going to go ahead and do a soft arch here and a soft arch here. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Nice soft arch, nice soft arch. And you can see that they're landing about the same place. Might need to come out just a little bit more on this one. Once I have that, I'm going to start to make a little bit of an orb that's going to be right in the center, and this is going to be the head of the bat in here. I'll give the bat a little bit of a soft ear over here and a soft ear over here. And then to create the body, we're going to go ahead and just come right off the edge of where the head is meeting this part of the shape and create a seed-like shape that will be the body of the bat. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to start to just do the outside line of this bat. So you're going to see me come in, creating that drop in right in here, going over to the other side. I'm going to go ahead and just bring in the head of the bat in here. And then I'll go ahead and do my arches. Same thing over here. And then once I have that, I'm going to do the internal lines of where the body of the bat is. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do an aura line. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect, and then I'm going to connect. And that's going to give me the body of my bat. Okay? So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. Let's bring in our first tangle for this piece here. We're going to do the Tangle Ampler, and this is by Headquarters here. An Ampler is where you have a square, and you can grab a piece of scratch paper and do this with me if you like. So I have this square, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to do an aura inside of the square, and before I close it off, I'm just going to keep going. And in some ways this is a lot like Printemps, where it just has that really nice feeling where it just keeps going and going and going. Now what I love about the way that certain people do Ambler is that they add a little bit of weight to it, and so you can come in and just add a little bit of thickness on the lines here on the interior. So you're going to see me add a little bit of thickness here, and I'm just going to continue to bring it in just on the one side here so that it has a feeling of just giving this a little bit of weight, and that is Ambler. So we're going to bring Ambler into the piece, but play with this for a moment and have some fun with it. So to bring Ambler in the piece, I'm looking at this section right in here, and I'm just going to make a little dot where I think the midpoint is, and I'm going to just go ahead and start by drawing a line to divide that space, so you can see that I've got that space there. Now I'm going to start by bringing Ambler up here. So let's go ahead and start to zoom in. And for me, the way that I like to do Ambler is I like to leave a little bit of room inside of it. You can see that I'm really taking my time and coming in. And see how I'm leaving a little bit of space between my lines. This makes it so that I can bring in that weighted line. Now I'm going to wait to bring in the weighted line and just do the other side. You can see that I'm turning my tile and I'm looking for that diagonal corner again. So all I'm doing is just coming in and bringing that in. Just like so. See how I'm leaving a little bit of space between my lines? Now that one I kind of lost a little bit of that corner there, but that's okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'll come in and just on the upper line here, I'm going to bring a little bit of weight. You can see that I'm just going over that line one more time. Coming in here and bringing in a little bit of weight. And in here I'm bringing a little bit of weight. Now I'm also going to come to that line that's towards the middle and towards the middle, right in there. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So all I'm doing is staying near to where the bat is and giving a little bit of weight to those lines in here as well. Same thing in here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to do a little bit of the weight on the inside. So I'm doing my weighted lines towards the middle of this segment in here, so that when you go and do this on the opposite side, you're going to do the same thing. So you can see how I did that, where I put the weighted lines towards each other and towards the bat. I can give this a little bit more weightedness as well. So I'm going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side. You go ahead and do yours. So you can see I've had a chance to work with Ambler, and it's really got a nice feel the way that it frames the piece, and I hope that you like it too. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my piece on its side here, and you can see that I've got my graphite pencil in my hand. I'm going to start at the midpoint of my bat wings here, and I'm going to do the letter C, and it's going to have a kind of soft arch to it, not a heavy arch. So all I'm going to do is just come in and create a nice soft arch that connects my 2 points, and then I'm going to come in again and I'm going to do a nice soft aura behind that as well. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink in my arches so that when I'm ready to do the next tangle, it's ready to go. Okay? So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. And just an FYI, in the next segment, you're going to notice that the Tangle Ambler disappears for a moment. We had a little snafu with the recording, and I had to come back in and re-record. So you'll notice that Ambler disappears just for one segment, but it will be back. All right, have fun with that. And our next tangle is called Gilgo, and this is a really beautiful tangle. I love it because it has such a neat mandala kind of feel to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by having a really kind of soft arc. And then what we're going to do with that is we're going to build a tangle that many of you are familiar with, henna drum. And so all we're going to do is we're going to come out with a little antennae here, and then we're going to have this little wavy line that goes over the top of it. Now I like to have mine meet so that you get this kind of space in between, and then once again another, and then over here we'll do one. And then she goes inside of henna drum and does an aura internally. Getting right in there. And then what's really cool about the way that she does this is she comes in and does these kind of soft little arches that come off, and it has kind of a movement to it, which is really, really nice. And then she comes in and she closes the arch down on the last arch. And this one can kind of close down. If you wanted to, you could connect out and do another one just like so. So then what I love about this is that she's got a beautiful little flap that she puts on these petals, and it gives it such a nice feel. And on the internal part of hers, she likes to do orbs, which I think is really pretty. Of course, you know me, I do love to put orbs in wherever I can on most pieces, and funnily enough, I didn't do that in this composition, but it's such a fun tangle. So that is Gilgo. So go ahead and just play with this for 1 second or two, and then when we come back, we're going to put it into our composition. So let's bring Gilgo into our piece here. I'm going to go ahead and start to bring it in by creating those henna drum pieces. And so what this is going to look like is I'm going to go ahead and come out at those nice diagonal angles here. Remember the idea of antennae? And then I'm going to go ahead and create those little arches that kind of look like clouds over the top. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to come up and touch that first petal, and then I'm going to go ahead and make the other one, and once again rounding off, and then nice cloud-like shape up top. One more time, coming up and touching, creating that soft cloud-like shape. And I think I can get one more in on this side. And I'll make it look as though it's just dropping right back in. Let's go ahead and do that on the opposite side. Rounding off, and a higher cloud up top. Turning, touching that first petal, rounding off, creating that cloud-like shape. Same thing over here. Touch. Coming over, and I'm going to make it look like one's going off in the background over here. So you can see that I've got this really nice petal-like shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to build that aura that we talked about. So it's just a really soft aura. And just taking your time as you come around. Bringing in that last one right over here. Now once I have that, I'm going to start to build that background piece. Now on the first part that I showed you, those petals kind of had a little bit of motion of flow on the side, but for this piece I wanted the energy to emanate outward. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by just making a little dot on the points of where the clouds are, or the top of our petals. And then in between you can take a little graphite pencil and make a little dot so that you know where the triangle is going to be. You can see that I'm coming up in between these and just making a little dot so that I have a place to take off and land. What this is going to look like is, I'm going to zoom in on that so that you can really see what I did. So you see how I have that point right there? All I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to land just like so. Same thing over here. Same thing over here. I'm going to come over to this side. Just really taking my time with this. Trying to keep them on the page as much as I can. And just letting that float right there. So you can see that I've got this really nice feeling. Now, if I wanted to, I could just come in with my graphite pencil and just look and see if I can get a little extra one in over here. And I think I can get an extra one to just float behind where our little grid is going to be. So just coming in and getting right over there. So you can see that that brings in such a nice feeling. So take your time with that, and then when we come back, we're going to add a few more elements to Gilgo. So I'm just going to come in and do a little bit more detailing on our Gilgo in here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come to the right hand side of the piece and create a soft flap that's going to go through that petal there, and you can see that it's just landing right on the inside of the piece here. And I'm just going to turn my tile and make it work for me. Coming in and creating those soft flaps. And then I'm going to come down into where we have our henna drum-like petals, and I'm going to create some crescent moon. And you can see it's a rather tall crescent moon. And I'm just doing a little bit of an aura in the background behind it. Taking your time. And coming in so that you get that really nice detailing that's behind the bat. So you go ahead and do yours, I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work down here inside of the bat. So before we come down and work inside of the bat, I want to come in between these petals here and add some orbs. And the orbs are going to be a really nice nod back to the darkness of our bat. So you're going to see me bring in these nice orbs in between the petals here, and I'm letting the orbs touch in between the petals. You can see that each one is touching and sitting into that kind of valley that those petals create. Now, once I've had a chance to bring those orbs in there, we're going to pool our ink into those orbs. And what this is going to look like is, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. I'm going to bring an orb in over here just to connect that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little bit of a crescent moon in here. And then you're going to see me pick up my Identi pen. This is that thicker nibbed pen that I like to use. And I'm going to pool my ink into where the orb is. Just like so. And I'm going to do that in all of those orbs. Okay? You go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine. So some of you who took the Napa Public Library class video over the weekend saw that we did Ampleon in that class, and we're going to use it in this class but a little bit more quietly. And so what this is going to look like, oh, and by the way, that class was called Momentous Moth, and it was a super, super fun class. It was this class right here, and we're going to do this tangle called Ampleon. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start by coming into the piece and creating two C's. And what it's going to look like is we're going to do a C and a backwards C. Now once we have that, we're going to go ahead and turn those C's into moons. Now, some of you who are brand new to Zentangle may not be familiar with the Tangle Muka, and I want to just give you a little bit of some background with Muka. Muka, and I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can really see it here, is a soft arch, and it comes around and it makes a little bit of a hook. And then once you have that hook, you can come back down and in and reconnect. And that is the Tangle Muka. So we're going to take Muka and we're going to bring it in here and just let it come out and create this nice soft arch and then dive back into the center. Same thing over here. And then what she does is she creates this really nice thick petal that goes behind the Muka. And then she steps in and does a thin petal. And then finally she does this little teardrop shape up at the top, or a leaf-like shape up at the top. And that is Ampleon. So let's bring that into our composition. I've picked up my graphite pencil and I'm going to go from this point to this point right here, and I'm going to make a soft arc with my pencil. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now I'm going to take our bat and I'm going to turn him, and I'm going to zoom in on this particular wing right here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Ampleon in here. I'm going to make a C, and I'm going to make another C. I'm going to turn those into my moons, and you can see that I'm still working with my graphite pencil. And I recognize that, when you're doing such a intricate tangle in a small space, it can be a little bit complex. So that's why I've picked up my pencil here. So once I've got my moons, I'm going to go ahead and create that Muka. And I'm going to do another Muka. Now remember how we have those thicker petals that go off of the back of Muka, and then a thinner one that comes in right in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create that leaf-like shape right there. Okay? So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this on the opposite side. So all I'm doing is turning my tile, and once again I'm creating the C-like shape, turning them into moons, making my Muka. Here comes another. And then I'm going to go ahead and create those arch-like shapes off of the back. And then once again, taking that leaf-like shape, pointing it right into the corner, and then coming back again. So that we've got these two really nice tangles on either side. Now I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to start to ink these in. Now if you have any lines that you want to work on to give them a little bit more definition, you can go ahead and do that. I'm just coming in with mine and just cleaning this up a little bit. Here comes my first Muka. There's the second one, working off the back. Nice narrow tangle right in here, narrow petal. And then once again creating that leaf-like shape right there. I'm going to turn my tile, come over to the other side here. Here come the moons. I'm going to go ahead and create my muka. And remember, you can make any adjustments that you want to here. Here come those nice thick petals right off the back. And then a nice narrow one. And then once again, that petal coming in towards that point on the bat, so that when I turn it over, we've got this really cool tangle in here. And you can see this one's a little bit bigger, but that's just fine with me. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add some muka on either side. So once again, I'm going to turn that bat, and I'm going to come in and make muka on either side of the body of the bat here. Now if you want to do this with your pencil, you can. And all I'm going to do, and by the way, if you don't have room for muka in here, it's not one of those things where you absolutely have to put it in there. I'm just going to do it because I really like the look of it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, create that arch, let it touch, and then create that little hook, and then come back and out. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side here, coming out, create that arch, create the hook, and then come back and in. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my pen here and just go right over what I just did, just creating more opportunity for Zen and more opportunity to practice muka. And bringing that back in, and when I turn it over, it really has a cool look to it, doesn't it? So go ahead and do your muka, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about pooling ink, and we're going to throw in another tangle right in here. So to add a little bit of interest on the inside of the bat body here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a line that goes down and a line that goes across so that it almost looks like a kite inside of the body there. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this if I can. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of a tangle that is a little bit like Showgirl and a little bit like Walk the Line. It's just a little bit of both. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a nice circle right in the center here. And I'm going to do a petal that comes up and out and touches the top where the bat head is. And then I'm going to let it come down and touch the bottom of where the bat body is. I'm going to go out to the side and do another one, and out to the side and do another one. Now I am going to do a little step down on each side, so it's going to look a little something like this. And then I'm going to turn my piece and do it again. This is where it's just like Showgirl, which is one of my favorite tangles. Turning the tile, just one on either side. And then once you've had a chance to go all the way around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and do a soft arch and connect these. Now I'm going to start to pool my ink and make this look really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in that ink into the body of the bat here. Coming in and around. Coming over here. And what I love about this is that it brings a really nice graphic feel into the piece, and also it's really resonating with what's going on up in here. So when I zoom out, you'll start to see that it's going to bring in that really neat graphic feel. So there's that. I'm going to zoom out, and I just love the correlation between these two. Now I am going to come in and bring in my Identi pen again, and I'm going to pool my ink inside of my bat's head. You can already see that it's starting to come to life, which is so cool. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to start to ink in around the inside of the bat wing. So you'll notice that I'm going to be very careful and not get inside of my tangles, but I am going to work around them. And this is where you can really take your time. And for me, one of the things that I like to do sometimes is I'll just aura with my pen so that I don't have to worry about getting inside of that tangle. And you can see that this is starting to get that cool feeling inside of the piece. You're going to see me just go around the outside edge here. And I just love this pen. So many of you have seen me work with it. It's become a real important tool for me when I do my tangling pieces. And I'm going to show you why in 1 second why this tool is such a great tool. So I have this area that's a little tight in here, and on the other side of my pen I have a little bit smaller of a nib to work with. But what I love about working with this side of the pen is that I can get into those areas and pool my ink and have it be the same ink, that I don't have to switch to another pen. Coming in, and actually this one's a little bit older, so I'm having to work just a little bit more than I normally would. If it was a new pen, it would be a little bit juicier and a little bit easier to work with, but it's doing the job for now. And look at how pretty that is on that one side. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side. You go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of white pen in there, and then we're going to start to do color. Normally I don't really add in white pen until the very, very end, but I really felt for this particular piece that I really liked having it in there. It just helped give this a little bit of dimension. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right here where we've got that leaf-like shape, and I'm just going to connect it to the edge of the petal, and you can see that I'm working with my Jelly Roll 10 Sakura pen. This is a white gel pen. Now you could use your Posca pen if you wanted to, but I feel that the gel pens go over the black ink a little bit better. Now I'm also going to come over in here and just add a nice curved line that's going to go right off the top of Muka. And then I'll come over here and do the same thing, just a nice curved line. You can see that one's slightly off, but that's okay. And then I'll do a little curved line that goes right off the top here and connects right back into that centerpiece. And for me, that just really helped frame it. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a very soft aura line that's going to go down and connect in here and over here, and I'll do the same thing coming off the body of the bat. You can just see I'm turning my tile, and wherever I can bring in that soft aura line, I'm going to bring that in. Now, to come in off the top here, I'm just going to connect it to the top of Ampleon, and the same thing over here. And I feel like that just gives this a really neat completed feel on that particular piece. Now you can come in and give a little bit of an aura if you want to, right in here and right over here. You can see that my Ampleon is a little bit in the way, so I want to make sure that I don't intersect that. Okay, so you go ahead and do yours, I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back we're going to add in a little bit of a border and start with color. So we have a lot going on here, and one of the things that I like to do is I like to add a border to my piece just to kind of contain it. But I also like the piece to look like it's breaking the border too. So I've got my graphite pencil in my hand here, and I'm just going to dip down about 1/4 of an inch below that point there, and all I'm going to do is create this border line that's going to intersect in between those petals to make it look like those petals are breaking that border line there. And you can see that I'm using my pencil so that I can do this by hand and not have to use a ruler. And so all I'm doing is just going through and creating that border line. And then once I've got that the way I want it, I'll come back in with my pen, and this is where I think this starts to hold it together. Just taking my time. I'm doing a little bit of what we call the holly bow method, where we come back in between the pieces instead of intersecting through them. So it's lifting up your pen and coming out the other side. It's going to do the same thing right here. I'm going to lift up, come out the other side, out the other side, and continue to work my way through, so that now I've got this really fun border that's holding the piece together. I just love the way that that looks. So you go ahead and do yours, I'm going to do mine, and then we'll come in and start to bring some color into it. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my favorite colors in the Prismacolor set here. I have violet in my hand, which is PC932, and I also have the process red, which is PC994. This is one of my all-time favorite colors. I use it a lot when I'm working with violet. It's a really beautiful color combination. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by working down an ambler here. And you can see that I'm really well sharpened up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by rubbing in the side of process red into the paper here. Now remember, if you don't have the same colors as me, don't worry about it. Grab your color pencils that are in the same hue and it'll work out just fine. So what I'm really looking for is a magenta and a violet. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit more, and you can see that what I'm doing is I'm going to stay on the side where I've got those thicker lines, and I'm using that really pretty process red, which is like a magenta, in this piece here. Now I'm going to use this as my base color, but then I'm going to pick up my violet and I'm going to bring the violet right over the top of it. I love blending these two together. There's just something that's just really satisfying about these two colors and working them into each other. So you can see that I'm also going directly over the black lines. I can do that because these two colors aren't pastel-y in nature. They actually have a really nice heavy pigment to them, so I can really play and have a good time with them. Now you can see that I'm just working it through and trying to really soften up that background so that I'm not picking up a lot of the white from that background. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that process red and kind of bob and weave between the two just to get this really nice electric color that's going to happen in here. Now once I have that the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to let that process red come out just a little bit over here. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, just letting a little bit of that process red come out. And then I'm going to come into this corner over here and let a little bit of that process red start to dive in. And you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of a light source in between, but it's almost like a V-like shape in here. Once I have that the way that I want it, I'm going to let that process red start to seep into the center of the piece here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of one of my favorite colors. It's orange, and this is PC 918. I'm going to take a little bit of that orange and start to bring it in right on the edges of process red. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then finally, I'm going to pick up a little bit of this beautiful sunburst yellow. This is PC 917. And I'm going to go ahead and just dip in and blend that out a little bit. And what I love about this is that it really gives this almost like a holographic feel. It really has a nice feeling to it. Now, for those of you who have been with me before, you know that I do love to use white as a blender, and you can go in and use a little bit of white to blend in any places where you're still seeing a little bit of that background poking through. And then you can also come down into where that process red is and give that a little blend out. And this, I feel like, really works well right in between where the orange and the yellow is. Just coming along and blurring out those edges really gives this quite a softness. I just love the way that that looks. So let's go ahead and do this again right on this side, right in here. So remember how we started with the process red? I'm just going to go where I have the thick lines and start to bring in that process red first. You can see that I'm working on the side of the pencil here, not the point. Letting this drop down right in there. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to come in with that darker purple. This is the violet, and start to go right over the top of it. So I'm just starting to get that really nice soft blend between the two. I'll let go of the violet just for a few moments and start to bring in that process red. You're going to see it almost looks like a V coming outward where I'm leaving that nice little sheen of light. Coming in over here and letting it dance up the side here, leaving a little sheen of light over in here as well. You can see there's my sheen of light right in there. I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange and start to just dance it along the edge of where that process red is. And then I'll bring in a little bit of process, or rather the orange over here. Picking up a little bit of that yellow once again. And just rubbing it along the edges. Now I'm going to take that process red once again and just kind of blur out the edges of where the orange is meeting that process red and softening it up. And then I'll pick up a little bit of white and just start to blend in that process red with the yellow and the orange. You can see that I'm even going to come in here and do a little bit of the top in here, get a little bit of that softness. So that when I zoom out, look at how cool that looks. It's got this really neat kind of feeling to it, like there's a sheen of light going across that tangle, which is so, so cool. I'm going to use that same process right over here in this area, so you go ahead and do yours as well. I really love the way that looks. I hope you do too. So let's go ahead and carry some color here. We're going to continue working with those purples and with the process red here. Let's go ahead and zoom in on our henna drum that we have in here. I'm going to go ahead and start with a little bit of the violet, and I'm just going to bring a soft dusting of that violet in here, but you're going to see me leave a little bit of a light source in there. Let's go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit more. And then once I have that violet in there, I'm going to bring just a little bit of a dusting of that process red right around where the light source is. I'll come back in with a little bit of that purple, that violet, and just give it a little bit of a pop. And you can see that that just brings a little intensity into it. So when I'm working with large numbers of the same shape, I'll oftentimes go in and do many of them at a time, and then come in and switch over into that other pencil just to give it that interest. But then that way you're not picking up and putting down your pencils over and over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to go through and finish up mine. You go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work in the petals behind these. Before I move on to the next part, I'm going to pick up a little bit of white, and you're going to see me slightly start to blur that process red and the violet into each other. I'm just softening it up, and the other thing that this is doing is making sure that none of that background is really popping through. You can really see that this gives it a very pastel-like feeling with that white. Now, if you lose the intensity of your violet, you can always come back in and just give a little bit of a heavier edge right along the inside line here, just to give it a little bit of drama and also to give it a little bit of depth too. So you can see that I'm just coming in and giving that a little bit more intensity there. So you go ahead and finish up yours, and then when we come back, we'll talk about the background colors. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange in here. This is PC 918. We use this down below, and we're going to continue to carry this up high here. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come into where we have these background petals and start to bring in a little bit of that orange right underneath where that flap is. Now you'll notice that I'm going to carry that color outward a little bit, and I'm going to leave a little bit of a light source on the left hand side over here. I'm going to continue to do that all the way through on these. And you can see that I'm going nice and light. I'm not pressing heavily with this. I really just want this to have a soft foundational color, nothing too over the top. Now once I've had an opportunity to do that, I'm going to pick up some of that process red and just give a little shadow right underneath where that flap is. You're going to see that shadow start to carry outward just a little bit. And I love the process red right next to the orange. There's something really, really rich about these two colors working together. Carrying that outward. And then I'm going to take some of that violet and start to bring that violet right in underneath where the flap is. This is just going to give this a little extra intensity. You can already see that that's starting to really bring dimension into that tangle. For me, when we're tangling, I really look forward to the shading because I know that that's really going to bring it to life. I'll pick up a little bit of white here, making sure that there's nothing else in there, and I'm going to start to blur those colors into each other. And I love to watch what happens with that process red and that violet. They really just blur right into each other so nicely. And so you can see, look at the difference between here and there. It's already starting to come to life. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up mine. You go ahead and finish up yours. And then when we come back, we're going to start to add a little bit of color in here. So let's take a little bit of that orange that we were using up in here and start to bring it down into here. I want this to feel like a harvest moon that our bat is under. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by taking a little bit of that orange, and you can see that I'm really far back on the pencil and I'm laying the side of the pencil into the paper here and just starting to develop a nice shadow right underneath where that line is. Just getting that in there so that we get this really cool glow around the bat here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that shadow start to come in behind the wing and down into that area. And then I'll dip down into here as well. Once I've got that, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that process red again, and I'm going to start to bring in a little bit more shadow behind that line. So you can see that I'm just very lightly coming in and bringing that shadow in. I'm going to let it come down around the wing as well. Letting it dive in. And then remember that yellow that we were working with early on? This is that sunburst yellow, PC917. I'm going to go ahead and start to bring in a little bit of that yellow right along the edge of where the orange is meeting the white. And then I'm going to let it start to dip back into where that process red is. I'm trying to get a glow off of it, and you can see as my pencil is touching that process red, it's starting to get a little bit more electric. Diving in and just working my way around, and you can see that I'm working with little circles to get that nice soft blend, and look at the way that that really starts to come together. And diving down. Bringing a little bit of interest in here. Looks really nice. It's got a really nice glow to it. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add a little bit of wallpaper into this. So I'm going to bring some wallpaper in here, and wallpaper is when you tangle with the color that you've been coloring with. And many of you have seen me use this technique. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that process red, and I'm going to use a little bit of printemps in here, and I'm going to do a couple of them large and then a couple of them small. Now printemps, the Tangle printemps, means spring in French, and so all I'm going to do is make some spirals here, and you can see that my pencil is really well sharpened up, and I'm just going to start to make these spiral shapes or spring shapes that are going to work their way around our little harvest moon here. You're going to see me do a smaller one in here, and then I'll come down in here and do a larger one. Can see that I'm not going into the white. I'm staying within where the color is. I might just do one more right in here, just to keep it a little bit interesting. So this gives that a little bit of texture without taking away from the bat here. So you go ahead and do yours, I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to bring that color down into where the bat is. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that orange that we were working with earlier, but if you have any string left that's in your piece, you can always come in with your eraser and take that out. I'm going to take a little bit of that orange and just bring it into the center here, leaving a little bit of a light source off on the left-hand side. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring a little bit of that process red in there just to give it a little bit of interest. Can take a little bit of that yellow and blur the two into each other just to keep a little bit of that softness in there. And I just love how this is a nice nod back to what's been going on out in these other pieces. I'm going to take a little bit more of that orange here, and I'm going to start to come up to where we've got our little orbs, and I'm just going to bring a little bit of orange on either side of these orbs, leaving a little bit of a light source in between, so you can see that that has a little bit of a light source in there. And then you can take a little bit of your process red and just bring it onto the edges to give this a little bit of interest in here as well. And I just love the way that that looks next to those orbs there. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to bring a little bit into the background. I have picked up Copenhagen blue, which is PC 906. This is a really nice navy blue, and it's going to really contrast quite nicely off of what colors we have on this piece. Now I'm going to hold the pencil really far back. You can see I'm well sharpened up here, and I'm going to lay the pencil down on its side and very, very lightly start to bring in that Copenhagen blue. Now I'm really just bringing in a soft dusting of it in here because I am going to come back in and add a little bit of pressure to this in a minute or two. So what I'm going to do is I'm just coming in and I'm just dancing around the orbs that I have in here and these really pretty petals that we have. I'm just going to start to jump into these little interstice areas in here. Those are the funky little triangles that you get when you put in orbs in those areas. So you can see that I've got this really nice dusting of that blue. Now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to start to press a little bit harder and bring in a little bit of intensity in that color right along where that purple is. I'm trying to define the space a little bit and really give a little bit of moodiness to this. So you can see that I'm just getting in there and bringing that in. I'm going to jump into these little areas in here where we've got those orbs and give that a little bit of intensity as well. And then I'll come along the line here and start to bring a little bit of pressure around the outside edge. So I'm really accentuating that frame a little bit more. And once I have that the way that I want it, get down in there a little bit just to give this a little bit of interest. I'm going to pick up some of that white that we were using before, and I'm going to start to blur some of my edges. And you can see that I like to start in the dark and pull it up into the light for this. And I'm doing little circles to start to pull that color around. You can see that I'm just moving that color and pushing that pigment around to get this really beautiful kind of pastel-y feel. I love to see Copenhagen blue with a little bit of that white. It really is one of those colors that gets very pronounced when you add a little bit of that white to it. You can see that I'm just starting to drag that color down and really get some interest out of it. And you can see that I'm leaving some of that lighter blue in there too, so that we have a little bit of the intensity on the outer edges and then some of that lightness in there as well. And you can play with as much or as little drama as you want in here. So if you want to come back in and add a little bit of darkness excuse me, into the piece, you can go ahead and do that just by going right over the white. Now, somebody asked me recently in one of the comments, why do I like to work with white as a blender? And I know some of you have heard me say this. Sometimes the blender pencil from Prisma, say that 10 times fast. Sometimes the blender pencil from Prisma can make it so that you cannot work over the top of the colors that you have. And so for me, working with the white and doing that blending, it lets you go back and forth and play. It gives you the freedom to really enjoy what you're doing. Now you can see that I've had a chance to work with that a little bit. I'm going to pick up just a little bit of that yellow and add a dusting here and a little bit over here and maybe down in here. I want it to look like watercolor. So I can also pick up some of that process red and just dust a little bit of that process red here and there, just to give it a little bit of interest in that background. And look at how pretty that is when you add just a little bit of it here and there. It kind of makes it interesting. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up this whole side, and then when we come back, we're going to start working with graphite. It's so moody. I like it. I hope you like it too. I'm going to add in a little bit of wallpaper into this, and I'm going to do it just by bringing that Copenhagen blue back in, and we're going to add some just vertical lines into this piece here. So all I'm going to do is just start to bring in these vertical lines for a little bit of a layering effect on that background, just to give this some more interest and texture, as if it needed more. But it just does. I can't help it. It just does. So you're going to see me just start to work my way down the piece with these vertical lines, and you'll notice that it does start to bring in a little bit of interest, and I love seeing those perpendicular lines very, very close to Ambler. It's very, very cool. So you can see that I've got those in there, and I'm just going to start to mimic those down underneath where my bat is. So you can see that I'm just bringing in a little bit of those lines in there just to give this a little bit of interest. And you want to make sure that all your lines are going in the same direction as what came before. So I'm thinking about what's above and working my way down in here. And look at the difference between this side and this side. So you may decide you're not into that. I really love the way that it looks, so I'm going to carry it over to the other side as well. So I've picked up my graphite pencil and my tortillon. This is my blending stump. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the area where we have our henna drum, and you can see that I'm going to add a little bit of graphite in here, and then I'm going to take that blending stump and start to blur it out and make it look very misty. And now, if you don't have a blending stump, remember you can always go into the bathroom and grab a Q-tip, and a Q-tip will do just as well. So I'm just going into henna drum and adding in a little bit of that graphite just to bring in a little bit of that spookiness. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine. Now I'm going to add one more element to this, and remember those vertical lines that we did up here? I'm going to add them in here, but with my graphite pencil, and you can see that this adds just another layer of texture into this piece, really making it quite interesting and taking something that we've seen before and just adding a new element into it. So you can see that I'm just adding those vertical lines into where the henna drum is. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. We're going to continue to work through the graphite here, and I'm just going to come up into those petals that we have up above our henna drum here, and you can see that I'm just dusting in a little bit of graphite, and then I'm going to take a little bit of my blending stump and just blur out that color a little bit and leave the tips white. And look at how pretty that is. It has such an elegant feel to it. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. I'm going to take a little bit more of that graphite and start to bring it down into the body of our bat here. You can see that I'm circling around that centerpiece, and then I'm also going to circle around the outside edge, and you're going to see that that starts to bring like a little glow inside the center of these petals that we have here. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that for you. And all I'm doing is just taking this and doing little circles to get that really nice blur. And then I'm going to go around the center, and you can see that we get this really nice glow that happens all around the outside edge in here. Now you can play with the graphite and really give it a little bit of depth if you want a little bit of a stronger shade in here. I think that I'm getting just enough to get that glow around the center. Now the other place that I'm going to add a little bit of graphite is going to be in Muka. And you can see that I'm just going to the tail of Muka and starting to dust that downward towards the top of Muka. And then I'll come in and also add a little bit of shading in Ampleon and just bring that outward as well. So you can see that that's really picking up and getting a nice feel to it. And I can see that I missed a couple of places with the black. I may have to go back in there and grab that. And you can see that that brings a really nice drama into these. I'm also going to come in to where we have our little leaf in here, and I'm just going to stay on the inside half of that leaf and bring in a little bit of drama there as well. can see that I'm leaving the white on the other side, but that just gives that a little bit more interest. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. I'm going to take a little bit of that graphite still and start to dust it into this area that we have for our arc in here. You're going to see me just bring this in, and then I'll come in and I'll blend that out just a little bit, like so, giving that a little bit of sheen and shine into the central area. You can come back in and give a little bit of pressure to that pencil and then blend it out again, which is really nice. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then we're going to do one last component with the black. We have these fantastic spaces in between our henna drum in here, and you're going to see me come in with my Identi pen in here and just start to fill in those gaps with a little bit of black. And what I love about this is that it gives that graphic feel once again, and also points you, a little bit outward, but also it's almost like it's extending out from the bat. Look at how pretty that is when we bring that in. So grab your pens, play, bring a little bit of that black in there, and look at how cool that is. Oh, I just love that. I hope you love it too. So here we are, and what I want to do is add a little bit of white highlighting into this piece. I'm not going to do a ton of it, but I am going to put in a little white dot into where we have these little orbs up high in here. And then I think what I'm going to do is come into the orb that is down in the belly of the bat and add a little dot there as well. Now, if you really wanted to get fancy with it, you could come in right above where the bat is and bring a little bit of white into the orb of the moon. And I'm using my Sakura Jelly Roll. This is a Jelly Roll 10 that I'm working with. And I'm just going to add a couple of dots in there like so, and that will bring in just a little bit of interest. But for those of you who are interested, this is the Jelly Roll 10. So go ahead and play, have fun with that, and then when we come back, we're going to finish up. So here we are, and I have picked up my process red. I've been enjoying kind of adding in my chop in a ghostly way, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come up into this corner right here and put my initial in color pencil so that it's just quietly sitting in there, which I absolutely love. I've really been enjoying that lately. I find that it doesn't take away from the composition and makes it a little bit more interesting. So you can see here's my original, and here's the one that we just did in class, and every time I do it, it's a little bit different, and I hope that you enjoyed the class today. I do want to show you something that I did with a little bit of gold. So I ended up doing the class in black and white, and then doing a little bit of gold, and this is the Signo Uniball gold, but you could also use the Sakura gold pen to work with this and really have some fun with it. It's a really, really cool look for this piece. If you enjoyed the class, please give it a thumbs up or leave a nice comment in the review. Even better, tell a friend about what we're doing over here. I want as many people to find out about doing Zentangle in color as I possibly can get. I find that for me, this has been such a joyous experience, and I want to share it with others, and I hope you do too. I'd love to see your creations over on our Tangled Yogi Art community page on Facebook. All you have to do is answer the security questions and you're in. It just helps us to know that you're not a robot. All right, so thanks you guys. I hope you have a happy Halloween. Enjoy all the good chocolates and the great costumes, and be safe out there. Bye for now.